Welcome to the Cheese and Vikes podcast. I am Parker, the Packers fan.
And I am Josh, the Vikings fan.
Today, Josh and I are going to be doing our draft grades. We picked our teams on our previous episode, so if you've not seen that, go ahead and check that out. Today, we are going to do teams of the North, NFC and AFC.
We're starting off with our favorites, obviously. So the Minnesota Vikings. I am maybe being a little biased. Go ahead and criticize me if you wish. An A minus to me. Amazing draft overall. The Vikings got their quarterback of the future without having to trade up and give multiple picks, which was a huge win. To be honest, never in a million years did I believe that we would also be able to trade up and get Dallas Turner. If you would have told me that we would get Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy in the first round, I would have called you crazy. I mean, depending on how McCarthy turns out, obviously, what you think of him, he's a very all over the place prospect. We didn't have any day two picks, but you do have to consider, at least I do, that it was part of the TJ Hawkinson trade. But then day three, Kyrie Jackson would have been a second round pick in my mind if he was not 25 years old working at a grocery store. But he is a certified baller, could have the same career trajectory as Richard Sherman. I do think Will Riker, the all-time leading scorer in NCAA history, that's a pretty good bet that he could reverse the Vikings kicker curse, but let's hope. I would have liked to see us address a little bit more of a skill position or two, maybe a running back. I do believe overall it was an A minus draft. I do not like how many picks we gave up for next year, but Dallas Turner, JJ McCarthy, that is an absolute win.
Didn't you say something about how they had two compensatory picks next year? So it really wasn't that big of a cost at all.
We are estimated right now to have one, possibly two compensatory picks next year, which would be third round for the loss of Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter. From what I've read around, that we may need one of our other free agents to sign elsewhere to actually lock those in. That's why I believe Kwesi was willing to package so many next year's picks, is because he is counting on those compensatory picks.
Heck yeah. Good job on the Vikings part too. I remember high-fiving you at the draft when you drafted Dallas Turner because I was just really excited to see him come off the board. It was just
I
a good sign of a good draft. I mean, it's a thing where I'm not really a football fan during the draft. I'm a draft fan. I like to see these teams win in the draft. And I don't care what team it is, except the Cowboys.
No, I mean to touch on Dallas Turner a little bit, and I absolutely agree. I mean, if I didn't think he'd be at our 11th pick, let alone us having to trade up from 23, or let alone having picked 23. I'm as a Viking fan, I'm ecstatic. We're going all in here.
Yeah, you guys did great, both on offense and defense, I thought too. And I'm going to get to my Packers here. Our first day, we picked Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan was personally my number 8 offensive tackle, and Tyler Guyton was my number 7. I was kind of hoping we'd take him. There's also Cooper DeJean on the board. Thought he'd be a really good fit for us overall. I just feel we maybe could have traded down for Morgan, so it just wasn't my favorite pick in the world. But then I kind of looked more into it and saw that he's a very versatile lineman. He actually didn't whiff on any of his run blocks through his entire senior season this year. And Packers are kind of looking to bolster their run game with the absence of Aaron Jones. So I felt like he was a very good pick overall. I didn't love this pick, but it wasn't bad. Day two, that's where it got really interesting, as we drafted Edrin Cooper and Javon Bullard, who are possibly the best prospects in their respective positions. I personally have them at 2. They are looking to start this year, and I thought they were great picks. But my favorite pick in day 2 was actually Marshawn Lloyd. This guy is a beast. 41% of the time he made contact behind the line of scrimmage and averaged 7.1 yards per carry. Offensive line issues, and he's still getting big yards. And people might be asking, okay, well, you guys just signed Josh Jacobs to a big contract. Well, my understanding is there's not a whole lot of guaranteed money. It kind of goes year by year. So releasing him shouldn't be a big issue if Marshawn Lloyd is to break out. So all in all, I think he might have been the best running back in this draft. So we may have gotten 3 of the best positions in the day 2. Tyron Hopper, though, he was a bit of a reach, and I did kind of understand why he was important to this process of how the Packers were drafting day 3. Hopper, of course, is a run stopper. They would add 2 run stopping safeties to complement him. And if you look at the Packers stats, they were 28th ranked in run defense this year. I'm so tired of people just running the B gap on us all the time. It never gets old to watch the 49ers do it to us. I mean, over and over again, that's all I had to do. B gap with McCaffrey. Before that, it was Moser. I mean, just doesn't matter. We can't stop the run. So I'm kind of happy we're looking to do something about that. But I think these guys were all reaches here. However, the seventh round kind of became my favorite. Michael Pratt was my number 7 quarterback this year. Josh, how high am I on this guy?
Where like you thought he could potentially be a late first round pick, sleeper early second. You had him over, I believe, maybe even Bo Nix. I know you had him over Spencer Rattler, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You liked him. You thought he had amazing, potential. Just his mechanics were a little wonky, but I'm surprised to see him go in the seventh.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And then, of course, the last one is Callan King. And reason I think he's fun, he was really good in 2022 for Penn State, but his 2023 campaign was a little lackluster. People were saying he could possibly be a first round pick, but he fell to the seventh to the Packers. So if people are right about what they were saying last year and he returns to form, I mean, you can see him starting this defense. I do think a lot of these picks are pretty risky, so I can't give the Packers a B, but they are going to get a C plus.
No, that's I mean, I would say Parker for you is a very fair draft grade. Like I said, I'll touch on Callan King here a little bit. You're right. He was. You look at Bleacher Report, Walter Football, all the people doing these way too early mock drafts that they do. He was in the first round consideration for sure. He had a pretty awful senior season and tested absolutely horrible for a corner. But I mean, he still was a highly ranked prospect and could do very well. And then also, I wanted to just touch on Jordan Morgan a little bit. Come back in a couple of years to this grade, he's probably going to be a staple of your offensive line, and you guys are going to freaking love him.
Oh, yeah.
That's you're right. You can look at draft picks. People booed the Mahomes pick. People booed Josh Allen, but
Remember
you're
Sean Gary, how mad I was when we drafted him?
exactly
And now
these
he's the
grades
only
are
guy I like to talk about. So it's like, whatever.
no
Shows what
like
I know.
More like Morgan's gonna be just like Ellen Jenkins for you, a staple of that line, Pro Bowl player, and you guys are just gonna you hate him now because he wasn't fancy like white boy Cooper DeJean.
Yeah. But, Cooper DeJean is still probably going to be a pretty big baller. But, well, we'll talk about the
Yeah,
Eagles some other time and
yeah.
their
I
draft.
am rating the Detroit Lions, and I started off with giving them a B minus. After going through their draft here, I love the Tyrion Arnold pick. They arguably got the best corner in the draft, best position available at a position of need also. Without the run on offensive players, he would have gone a lot sooner. And for a team in the NFC Championship game to get him and trade up very little to get him is a huge win for Detroit. When you look at their team needs coming into the draft and even just the offseason in general, Detroit needed a corner. They needed the cornerback desperately. And what do they do in the second round? They take Enos Rakestraw Jr. He is going to be a starter in the league for a long time. He is very technical sound. They drafted two corners with their first two picks. By the third day of the draft, this is where I'm getting a little nitpicky, I guess, on their draft. I think they were getting a little bit too cute. I wasn't a huge fan of Giovanni Manu, the tackle out of British Columbia. I mean, I could be wrong with that, but the early fourth round to me is a bit of a reach for a very developmental project. Also, Sion Vaki, the running backs, and he's also potentially a safety. They classified him on draft day as running back and safety, yes, in the fourth round. To me, Detroit was just getting cute with these picks. They think that they're invincible and they're just picking players to pick players at this point. To me, one of the steals of the draft, honestly, came in the sixth round at pick 210. Christian Mahogany, the guard from Boston College. If he would have went day two, no one would have batted an eye. Give him a B minus. I think day one they'd get an A for sure. Day two, they get a B. But overall, solid B minus draft for them.
Key Wingo pick they made in the 6th round. I've actually seen him in some end of day 2 mock drafts, like 3rd round. And then Enos Rakestraw, I do actually think was a very good value for a 2nd round, especially late 2nd round. For Detroit to just completely fill their secondary like that, they are gonna be a deadly team this year. I mean, honestly, I gotta say the entire NFC North is starting to look scary here.
They fixed their corner issue. That's the big thing for Detroit out of this draft is getting solid corner play, and they absolutely nailed that out of the park. Honestly, Justin Jefferson will cook them.
Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
Duh, Bears. I'm kind of ashamed to give this grade. They happened to pick not only the probably two best players available when they were up, but their two biggest needs. So, what better way can you improve a team? We need to talk about their picks in the first round. They may have Caleb Williams in a better situation than any quarterback drafted this year. And I'm going with JJ McCarthy on that too.
Continue.
All right. So they did sign DeAndre Swift, who had a great year last year. He did kind of have a slump at the end of the year, but he did have only zero point 0.1 less yard per carry than Aaron Jones. And just another statistic for you when running backs hit their age 30 season, typically a 25% drop in production. So you could expect Swift to be a better running back this year. Kmet only had 200 yards less than Hawkinson, which I'm not going to say he's on Hawkinson's level. I think, like you said about Hawkinson, he might be a top five tight end. And DJ Moore and Keenan Allen both had over 1,200 yards last year. So that Keenan Allen pick is bigger than you think. And I mean, Jordan Addison didn't even have 1,000 yards. Justin Jefferson did in 10 games.
He sure did, fella.
You want to know how many games it took Keenan Allen hit 1,000 this year? 10 games. I'm not saying he's as good as Jetta. I mean, that's still a pretty impressive feat for a
No,
31-year-old.
no one is better than Jetta. And if you say otherwise, you crazy.
I'm saying Keenan Allen is underrated as heck. So their first two receivers are pretty impressive. Their tight end is pretty impressive as well, considering he had over 700 yards.
Keenan Allen had Justin Herbert throwing the football to him. Justin Jefferson
Had
had
Kirk
a
Cousins.
combination of Kirk Cousins,
Ugh.
Mullins, Jaron Hall, and
Hey, Nick
he's
Mullins is a slinger, dang it.
I can't even give you credit here. If you're, I thought you're supposed to be grading the Bears here, Parker. I don't know why a lot of Vikings names are being thrown out of your mouth.
As I mentioned, better start than JJ McCarthy. Cannot give them a better grade than the Vikings, if I am being honest, because we're talking about the whole team for a draft, not just the quarterback that they, I will say, set up better than JJ McCarthy. So Bears are going to be getting a B from me today. And the reason they aren't getting an A, day two, they only had one pick with Kieran Amagagi, and although he was a great pick, and I see a ton of potential in this guy, and I could see him even starting this year, possibly at right guard, possibly at the left tackle. Day three, they got a punter in the fourth round. I mean, it might be the best punter, but it's the fourth round pick. I mean, you probably could at least trade your pick down or something like that.
I'm sorry. Hold on a moment. You take Tory Taylor's name out of your mouth. Tory Taylor is a certified baller.
I never said Tory Taylor, but thank you for just.
That's the punter out of Iowa. Iowa punted
I
the ball a
know.
lot, and he could have been. People are saying he could have been a second round pick if he wasn't 27 years old. Tory Taylor isn't going to be an All Pro punter his rookie year, which is kind of terrifying.
They're still getting a B.
But Tory Taylor gets an A. Tory Taylor was the best pick of this damn draft.
I'm not changing my grade. It was a punter.
All right, let's continue then.
So Austin Booker, I actually thought was a somewhat talented edge rusher. He could be decent. Overall, I'm not super impressed with day three. I'm not super impressed with day two, so that's why I gave the Bears a B. Better than the Packers, though. So I'm not being biased.
This draft for the Bears to me is honestly franchise altering. They got the quarterback of the future. They got a surefire, probably a number one wide receiver, top 10 potential receiver in the league, at Roma Dunze. And then they
Right.
drafted Tory freaking Taylor, the punter out of Iowa. Tory Taylor, watch his films. Like, he is amazing. Austin Booker, they traded a next year's fourth for him, which I don't think the Bears should be giving up future assets just yet. I like the
No.
Vikings, but it's going to really depend on the players.
And I will say Odunze, though, I want to add on to that. And that is another reason I think he's set up better. So if there is an injury with Jetta or Addison, who's your number three receiver?
TJ Hawkinson.
No, your number three wide receiver, not your
TJ
number three
Hawkinson.
not your number three. Yeah. So there you go. You got two targets on there. Well, here's the thing: is if Keenan Allen or DJ Moore go down, here comes a Dunze. In fact, that might not have to happen for a Dunze to come in. So the reason I didn't give them an A is they do have a little bit of a lackluster defense, and they added one edge rusher in the fifth round. The other reason I like giving Vikings a higher grade too is the fact that you have JJ McCarthy, and it just is going to immediately change your entire offense. And then you have Dallas Turner, and it's going to immediately change your entire defense. These two guys are just changing the offense together, and it's half the side of the ball. That's why I like the Vikings getting a better grade than the Bears.
Well, I appreciate that.
I'll be nice for once.
Absolutely. And we're starting with this Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steel Curtain. I promise you, I'm not a Steelers fan. I gave them an absolute A plus draft grade. Best,
Boo.
hands down, I believe the best draft class in this draft. I don't know how they did it. The way they drafted was honestly just inspirational. I'm gonna say that. We're to start out with Troy Fatanu at pick 20. The run on offensive tackles, wide receivers, quarterbacks was unheard in this draft. Troy Fatano to me just screams Pittsburgh Steeler. A versatile offensive lineman who will start tackle guard anywhere you want him on day one.
He's going to
And
be the lineman version of Palomalu.
bro, he will. He 100% will. He 100% will. Troy Fatanu, I wasn't as high. You were very high on Fatanu, but I
Well,
mean, I thought he would be
it's
gone.
not.
You
It's
were trying to
not.
pick him at 8. At 20, it's just incredible value.
It's his versatility I like, not his overall skill. Just to be clear, I didn't think he was
Which
the
his
best
skill is pretty
tackle.
damn good too.
His skill is pretty damn good. I like his versatility. That's what I like about him. You can put him anywhere. And I thought for maybe a team like the Bears that needs a lot of help on the offensive line, he'd be better there. Or the Jets.
Zach Frazier in the second round. We were talking earlier where we could see the Packers taking him with their
Yeah.
early second round pick, and at pick 51, I'm showing here is where he was drafted. Pittsburgh had one goal in mind, right, and that was to address the offensive line. And boy, they are sure investing in it. Hopefully, Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, whoever's quarterback for the Steelers this year, feels well protected. Let's
Well, if their offensive line sucked last year, it probably won't this year.
day two is really where they separated themselves from anyone in this class.
Hmm.
Roman Wilson at pick 84, like I don't know, like I liked him. We all watched him in the national championship
Yeah.
game. He was JJ's only target. Like who was McCarthy throwing to? Roman Wilson. Really? Can you think of anyone else? He had a good running game, obviously with Blake Corum. He his main passing targets were to Roman Wilson, and the Steelers need a wide receiver. They traded away Johnson this offseason. He might not be the height, weight, speed guy, but this guy can play football. He is a football player. Think Tyler Lockett. I think he's got Tyler Lockett potential, and to get Tyler Lockett esque player in the third round is incredible. All right, and then what if I told you here that they got the best linebacker in the draft? Peyton Wilson very well could have been a first round pick if he didn't have injury concerns. I know you guys took Edgerrin Cooper, but to me, this is the best linebacker in this class. Third round, pick 98. All right, and then Parker, our boy, Mason McCormick.
Really wanted the Packers to take him.
We may be biased as we are, go Jacks fans, go
Yeah.
Jacks.
Go Jacks, baby.
But Mason McCormick in the fourth round, he's an old school lineman that fits what Pittsburgh likes to do. If they have their mean running style, their mean offensive lineman, he fits that perfectly. I'm definitely biased here, but what a great pick. To me, that really just tops off hell of a draft. A plus Pittsburgh Steelers.
I really like the Mason McCormick pick. I do actually think he's going to be pretty solid. I've seen him. He is a pretty decent run blocker. I went to an SDSU game And we're watching them look at my dad, and I go, all I got to do is run left. Watch McCormick. All they did was run left. If Justin Fields starts, he's going to be an even better fit for the team. For McCormick's sake, I'm kind of hoping for Fields.
I believe he could find a starting job right out of training camp. I don't care about the people drafted above him or who they have on that team right now. McCormick, he's a baller. There was no match for him at the FCS level. Like you said it, you were very, very high on the guy, and on Isaiah Davis, a fifth round pick out of the Jets that we'll touch on later once we do the
Yep.
Jets. But
I'll get to
he
that.
he had running holes for days. They didn't ever need to pass the ball. He's kind of like Michigan's offense. The Jackrabbits were very similar.
The other one I like is Roman Wilson's comparison to Tyler Lockett. Do you remember what I called Tyler Lockett in fantasy?
What was that?
Tyler Toothpaste. You don't remember that you packed him, but when you did, you're pretty glad you did, especially on a bye week. He,
Football players. They're just
oh yeah.
straight up football players.
Well, the thing is too is I want to share this stat from 2023 to 2018. The only receiver that had more touchdowns than him in that time frame was Devontae Adams.
Like you said, you touch on it. If you have them, it's
You're
like,
grateful
oh,
to have him.
you're grateful to have him. Exactly. Like that's exactly who Roman Wilson. Like every team in the league would take a Roman Wilson or a Tyler Lockett.
Right.
They would absolutely take him. Underappreciated is what I'm gonna say.
I would agree.
You should get into your Bengals here, sir.
Let's talk about the Bengals. First of all, I really wanted Mims to go to the Packers. I actually think he's the number 5 OT in this draft, but I do think his skills could possibly qualify him as the best one to come out of this draft. He's a good run blocker, he's a good pass blocker, and I think Joe Burrow got maybe the best piece of protection he could have got to add to his offensive line. So day one was really good for them. Day two, Chris Jenkins was my number 5 D tackle, but he is still a good player and should be a day one starter. Two guys the Bengals got I thought were kind of interesting. Jermaine Burton and McKinley Jackson. I really like Jermaine Burton because they say he's like a top 10 tape guy. Like his highlight reel is pretty awesome, honestly. McKinley Jackson is also a pretty excellent player, but both of them, what their problem is, they have some character issues. I don't think that's going to be a problem for the Bengals. They had Joe Mixon, Vontaze Burfict, Pac-Man Jones. They have had plenty of these players with attitude issues, and they have seemed to thrive in their environment for one reason or another. If bad character is not an issue, it's very likely one of these guys is going to hit. And to me, that's more than worth it. I think what my favorite highlight of the Bengals draft was day three, actually. Eric All, the Iowa tight end. You know Iowa tight ends.
T.J. Hawkinson,
TJ
George
Hawkinson,
Kittle,
George
Sam
Kittle. Yep,
Laporta.
yep,
It's a
yep.
factory.
It is an absolute factory. Eric All has a little bit of an injury concern. He kind of reminds me of Luke Musgrave, of just having these few games. I mean, he played more than Musgrave, don't get me wrong, but he plays fantastic when he plays. And it reminds me more of what the Packers did last year. It's when they get Tanner McLachlan, who I think is actually a pretty solid tight end in his own right. He's a good route runner and he's a good blocker. And you know why else? You want to know why else I love these picks, Josh? Is did you know the Bengals have only had one tight end catch for over 500 yards in the past 10 years? My last pick I wanted to highlight for the Bengals was Matt Lee. He is actually a pretty impressive zone blocker. I was watching some of his film. He's pretty good at picking up stunts. And, if he finds his way onto that field, Joe Burrow, you want him to be throwing the ball. All in all, I like the Bengals pick. I think if the Bengals picks go the way I think they should go, we could see a Super Bowl contender here. Today, I got to give them the B plus. They do have a little bit of risk on their side, and I could see something falling through. A lot of these players have, injury concerns, character issues. I know it's the Bengals, and that's why I'm giving them the plus.
Think of their offensive line. They have mammoth men. Orlando Brown, Trent Brown, or Darius Mims. Those men are terrifying. They are absolutely huge. They are protecting Joey B, and they have made that absolutely clear. just listen to like these sizes here. Like Orlando Brown, 6'8", 345 pounds. Trent Brown, 6'8", 355 pounds. They they just continue to size. They don't care about prototypical tackle. They want big men, and they have made it clear. That's what we like, and that's all I really gotta say about that.
That's all I got to say about that.
That's all
What
I gotta say about that.
what you got to say about them Browns, Josh?
This is not a good draft. This is not a good draft for the Browns. I mean, they built a quality team and they should be championship contenders, but they are being held down by their quarterback play. And Deshaun Watson, obviously those massages really messed with his playing skill. I don't know why or what happened with him, but
It's all the oil and
it,
popcorn
it,
from the popcorn he ate while getting massages.
it's got to be because he's not the same player that he was once at one point, and they're still paying. If you think about that, they're still paying first round picks for him. They're stuck with him. They're just stuck with Deshaun Watson for better or worse. It's truly like a marriage.
How the Texans could like make the worst trade ever by getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins and then probably make the best trade ever of getting rid of Deshaun Watson.
It's just kind of baffling to be honest. They
Yeah.
gave him 4 first round picks and then a fully guaranteed massive contract for a guy that honestly, at the very least, questionable character, and it's continuing to look worse. I mean, they're going to be a playoff team and contenders this year with whoever they have a quarterback because of that defense. And with that, like I said, they did add Michael Hall Jr., the tackle from Ohio State. He's a solid player. I think that's, probably where we expected him to go. Same thing can be said here with Zach Zinter, the offensive lineman from Michigan. I know you liked him a little more than I
Hmm.
did. Yeah, I think he's a good player and will be a quality starter in the league. I just wasn't super high on him personally, but he'll fill a starter spot on the line for the Browns, or at the very least he'll be a solid backup for them. And to me, their day three was very, very uninspiring to me. I did like the Miles Harden pick. Another, he played for the wrong South Dakota school, but I just you gotta love the home state guys, and I did
Ah,
watch. To me, this draft class was absolute trash. There's very little upside with this class overall, and the Browns failed this draft. They get a D.
yeah, I actually like Zach Center. The reason I like him, he's a really good run blocking guard. And you got to remember Nick Chubb is coming back. Jerome Ford won't be the lead back anymore, so maybe him in a smaller dosage will be better for their offense. I actually think their day two picks weren't bad. I think if they would have had a first round pick, it really could have turned it around and possibly given them a C in this.
You do have to consider Deshaun Watson. To me, this is just they're still going to be good because they built a great defense. Miles Garrett
Right.
is an absolute home wrecker. It's just this class does nothing for me in terms of excitement. You would have liked to see, you know, maybe another receiver. They kind of picked positions that weren't deep and kind of maybe reached for players a little bit. But that's all I can really say about it is uninspiring.
I'm going to get into our last team of the day with the Baltimore Ravens. Their first pick was Nate Wiggins. And I do like Nate Wiggins, but I also like Cooper DeJean better. And I also like Xavier Legette a lot better too on the Ravens team than Nate Wiggins. They're kind of one of the only teams that doesn't have a really good number one wideout. I mean, Steelers have George Pickens, the Browns have Amari Cooper, the Bengals have Jamar Chase, and Baltimore has Zay Flowers. And although he did perform pretty well last year, he just hasn't convinced me yet that he's a true number one like the rest of them. And I think they need something to help them compete a little bit more. But
Yeah,
I mean, with that being said, that could be a reason to take Nate Wiggins. Having that pure athleticism that he has could possibly be an answer to all those number ones.
Nate Wiggins was picked not to stop any division rival. He was picked to stop the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers in the playoffs. That I really believe that. Like the AFC North does not have, a stable of wide receivers like you would say the NFC North does. And to me that was to stop the Chiefs.
Stop the Chiefs. And is he just an extra piece to like play on defense, or is
No,
that what
he
you're thinking?
he is a fast corner. He is
Yeah.
fast.
He ran like
Who
a
did the
4.3
Chiefs
too,
just
didn't he?
draft? Yeah, no, he
Ah,
is a
Xavier Worthy.
yes,
Gotcha.
he
Gotcha.
is to stop the Chiefs playmakers, and I truly believe that was the pick was made in thought of that.
That's
They
actually
lost to
kind of
them in the AFC Championship game.
so the next pick was Rosengarter, and I think he's a good idea on paper as in terms of like his physical tools and his combine. The fact he didn't give up any sacks last year, all those things make him look pretty good. But I know Josh would agree with me on this. His tape just looks horrendous. Like it's almost like watching the football version of Nikola Jokic. You watch his tape, and Nikola Jokic looks so awkward when he plays basketball up there. And same as Rosengarter. So I just think that he looks so off balance that he's not going to translate well. And I think I'd rather had them pick like Christian Haynes or Cooper Bebe. Um, Adissa Isaac was also a good pick considering where he was drafted, but Cedric Gray was on the board, and I thought he was a better pick. So I just wasn't impressed with their day two. It seems like the talent they picked might have been about at the right level, but it's just that there was better talent on the board when they were picking. But day three is just they have the bet like so I graded every team's days individually. Ravens got a perfect score. They killed it day three. They took Tez Walker, who is one of my favorite prospects, and I like it better because he's on the Ravens, and I think he fits well with the Ravens. I think he can line up with Zay Flowers possibly on day one, be that number two receiver that maybe brings in 800 yards. He could do some jet sweeps. There's a tons of layers he adds to an offense. Reminds me of MVS, but he can actually catch the ball once in a while. The next pick they took was TJ Tampa, and I was just so mad the Packers weren't taking him. I thought we might need a corner considering that we just decided not to sign Eric Stokes' fifth-year option because TJ Tampa should have been off the board early third round in my opinion. He's got the hit stick factor. He has really good length. He's athletic. Um, in the last episode, I was kind of just trying to figure out where the Ravens going to go for defense. Were they going to try and improve their offense? They really did both. And what I like is how they ended their draft to Nick Samick, who is a center, and he's a pretty good run blocker. And traditionally Ravens adding Derrick Henry and, like I said, Tez Walker possibly doing some jet sweeps. I mean, Zay Flowers could do that as well. I like the idea of having a run blocking center to just give you some depth. Because the first 2 days were so bad, the Ravens are going to get a C. I feel like the Ravens wasted too much opportunity in the beginning. They could have done much better.
I will agree with the grade there. I said, they did take some good potential players in day three there, which I do like. Ravens
Yeah,
will probably get the best out of them. The only thing I really want to say about this draft class is Roger Rosengarter to me is the worst player I have ever seen. I'm not even kidding you. He is the worst. Like he was
but
so
Josh,
unmatched. He should have been a
zero
division.
sacks.
Oh, Michael Penix sure felt the beating every single time. Was literally he was unmatched. Like he should like was not good enough for the college level. How is he getting drafted day two of the? He was a second round pick, correct?
He was a second round pick,
I
picked
I
30
mean
by
I
the
will eat
Ravens,
my words if
or
he
29.
proves it. I will eat my words if he is a good player, but I see him out of the league in 2 maybe 3 years. Maybe with the Ravens will succeed because he won't have to drop back to pass like for in pass protection all that often. But see, I don't see him as an NFL player. Welcome to the UFL, buddy.
Ouch.
I would beat him in a pass rushing situation one on one. He is that terrible. And I am out of shape to say the very least.
I don't think you would take him one on one. I don't think I would take him one on one.
Bet. Bring it on, Roger. Time and place, buddy.
No.
And this was Cheese and Vikes Podcast. Thank you all lovely souls for watching. This is Josh, the Minnesota Vikings fan. And next up,
Parker, the Packers fan. Have a good night. Bye.